The community to me was a sense of openness, of diversity. I realized that there is such a diversity in the community that I'd never known before.
I've traveled the world and the country looking for a place to settle down. And I chose LA mostly because of the LGBT community here.
And that was a freedom for me to find my niche there, to meet people, to explore things that I was maybe uncomfortable with in that diversity, and realize in time, I'm comfortable.
I do lots of things in the community. I mean, I like theater, so I do a lot of theater. But aside from that, you know, I do some stand-up. I come to the LGBT Center and I take comedy classes. Right now, I'm doing tap dancing, which is really a kick.
When we start talking about LGBTQ identity, I think we have to naturally allow that to expand. I have built my community, and it is reflective of gay, straight, lesbian. I have now one non-binary friend. I have several transgender friends. They are white, they are black, and they are Asian.
I had a subscription to the Pantages, and they were showing Hamilton there, and they were putting the rest of the plays at the Dolby Theater.
At the time, I had gone out to take out the trash, and I heard neighbors, and it was a small complex, and I heard a couple of neighbors exclaiming, not very politely, basically, WTF, what are they talking about?
So it was the first time I went to the Dolby, and I took a friend with me, and the two of us we walked in, and I noticed there weren't a lot of people there.
The neighbor, his name happened to be Simon, he came out, he's Australian, and so you've got this thick, roaring Australian accent just going completely off. That's how I became aware that they announced a lockdown.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it is. This really is true. You know, it's locking down. People are going to stay home, and life is going to change as we know it.
There we were a week before the shutdown, the 20th of March of 2020, and I was telling everybody, this is real, and this is going to be something you never knew in your life, and it's going to be something you're never going to forget. It's going to be a marker in your life of before, now, and then.
I saw that announcement on that Sunday, the 15th, as being very ominous that the whole place is going to shut down soon. Where are we going? I don't know. 5 days later, on the 20th, LA, Los Angeles shut down.
The way it affected me, though, in terms of my LGBTQ friends, and, you know, my sister who is bisexual, one of my closest friends who is gay or lesbian, and then my many gay male friends, all of a sudden we had a very strong friend-like family community that splintered.
I know a lot of the community activities were shut down, and that's been very lonely making.
There was just me and the four walls I was in. I didn't know where the ship was sailing to. I didn't know when we were going to get out of this, if we were going to get out of this. It became one of, is this the way it ends?
Like, I think everyone expected it would last a couple months, then things would go back to normal, but it kept creeping and creeping and creeping.
I've seen what the Great Mortality, the Black Death did, you know, and I knew that lasted for 300 years. So I'm like, I don't have 300 years.
The fear that people felt was so immense that it made them like cocoon into their own being. And I'm totally the opposite. When I have fear, I go and look for people so I could, feed off their strength. But it was opposite for everybody else. Everybody, they went into their little corners and hid away, and that even made me more fearful.
I had heard about people who were incarcerated and then they put them in isolation because they misbehave or for whatever reason. And I was always like, well, how bad could that be? Well, I kind of understand now.
It's been really negative for me because I'm a really out, I like to be with a lot of people, but all this time that I've been alone, it's slowly killed me. It's like a plant looking for sunlight. And the Sunlight are my community. The Sunlight are my members of my community.
It was the first time that I've really ever lived alone.
And being by yourself, if you don't love yourself enough, you can't feed off yourself if there's not that self-love.
And so here I am, not only am I living alone, but I don't have contact with people. You know, I can't go out to Starbucks and hang out. I can't go to the center and see people.
And that really slowly kind of like a plant that's not getting sunlight, it slowly starts withering.
One of the things about the lockdown is because your options were so limited in terms of what you can do, you focus down.
During the pandemic, I started to take the opportunity to do some photography. I wanted to record what was happening here, what the feeling of loneliness, of emptiness was like.
I had a Solari bell that I acquired back in the 70s lying on the dining table, and I thought, well, let's hang that. And I said, well, I lost the sails, you know, the little thing that catches the wind. So what do I replace that with? And right next door in the closet, there were all these pieces of clothing I'd had from my mother, my father, my first boyfriend, and I'd always meant to do something with that. So what I did was take strips of clothing from those, along with some face masks, one of them given to me by my current buddy. I happened to have in the window a beat up baseball that I used to throw to my crazy half coyote, half Doberman dog. And so I tied the fabric to the end of the bell and wrapped it around the ball, and just somehow managed to wrap one of my partner's old neckties around it to keep it together. So now I can ring it, and according to my tuner app, it is the perfect E.
Well, I'm a Taurus, number one, so we're very sensual human beings. Our lives are constantly evolving, revolving around sensuality. So we're constantly looking for that touch, that human contact.
What did I do sexually during the pandemic?
So try to imagine you're this kind of person like me and you want all that love around you, but yet people are saying we can't be near one another.
I was extremely fortunate because a few months before the pandemic hit, I met someone, and we liked each other, and we just kind of informally, at first it was informal, and then it was kind of like a little more explicit, cocoon together.
It was a lot of self-gratification, a lot of sexual fantasy.
Quite frankly, there's nothing like a good old handheld shower head, okay? Takes care, cleans the pipes, as I would call it, you know, a cleansing orgasm.
As to what we did specifically, that's for everyone's imagination.
I don't know how you do this online thing. All right, because I'm much better in person. You know, you need to really see me and talk to me. You know, you're either going to like me or you're not going to like me. All right, and you're going to know that within probably a couple of minutes. All right, and so I did meet some women online, and I met them in parks. I'd go and because I needed to see them in person. All right. But I really didn't have any sexual contact. You know, first of all, I had no chemistry and with someone, and I do need that. I do have to have some chemistry. But I missed it. I really miss passion in my life.
The pandemic or the actual lockdown effects of it are seceding. But what's been left in the aftermath, I think, is the darkness and what is going to get a little darker.
I've felt discrimination in my life as being a woman, first of all, and that was probably the largest part, and then a lesbian, all right? But I can't imagine having a society that looks down on you they can see just the tone of your skin, the color of your skin. Damn.
That was devastating, George Floyd, when that happened. You know, he was a person and not an animal. And the police had no right to take his life. They were judging him because he was black.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
I live in West Hollywood, and even though I couldn't be out on the streets, but I could hear them protesting day after day after day. And I was like, yes, yes, you need to change it. This is one of the things that you have to change.
Thousands of people were coming together because of Mr. Floyd. So that was a huge impact. Not were we only fighting for the rights of Mr. Floyd, but we're also trying to find out who we were as a community.
Well, it only reminded me of the times when I got arrested. The police are so cold, you know. I always like to dress with pants and, you know, it's comfortable in this clothes. So as a kid, I always dressed that way. But when I was 17 years old, I got arrested for it. They booked me on masquerading, which I was not aware of. I didn't know what the heck that was. So then they had me go to court next day, and then they turned me loose. And what the heck did I know? I had never been to court. I had never been in jail, so I just blew it off. And then they picked me up again, and they took me to jail again. And they pick me up every so often, and I go to jail, and the next day I go to court, they turn me loose. A friend of mine on the street told me to go and see Martha Jefferson. She was good with the gay people. I didn't know the word gay or lesbian or anything. I just knew I was different, and I liked women. you know. And then the receptionist told me, well, Martha Jefferson isn't here, but there's a young man in there that's taking her place. So I walked over, and he was a young black man, and this was in the 60s. So I thought to myself, oh my gosh, a black man, they're fighting for their rights. Going to court with a Mexican-American lesbian, they're gonna throw us out of court.
There were whispers about Mr. Floyd's orientation. I found that very interesting because as I was reading that in the media, it almost seemed that was lessening the sympathy. And I was very aware of how that was removed from the media and any commentary or addressing his orientation, because what did that have to do with having a knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 47 seconds? Absolutely nothing.
It just, well, it's being different. I mean, he was black, we're gay, and that it triggers a lot of crazy people out there. And that in general, I must be walking around somewhat on guard. At this point, it's probably unconscious or subconscious, but I can't, walk around with that thought consciously all the time, or I just would, go nuts.
I live this every day. Every day. Whether it's being stopped because I'm shopping while I'm black, or being a threat to someone simply because I'm walking around in the skin I'm in.
The stigmatizing, the blaming, this is all because of the people in Wuhan, this is all because of the Chinese, this is all because of the Asian, this is all because of everything but a recognition that we're all in this together.
Given some of Trump's blaming and his scapegoating, I did wonder whether or not I'd get beaten in the street. I was accosted a couple of times. Someone sees you walking down the street to your car and starts shouting, "Go back to China," and standing in front of your car or acting very menacingly. Or if someone in the laundromat starts going, "Ching, ching, Chinaman," you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know whether you're gonna lose it, they're gonna lose it, and whether or not it might lead to violence. But no one ever tried to hit me, and I never did really try to run anyone down, so in retaliation.
I liken it to the AIDS crisis. I liken it to being, there was a crisis, we didn't know where we were going.
The gay community was being blamed for a virus that was attacking them.
People were going after all the people that were infected. Instead of supporting them, they're like, oh my gosh, separate them. It's all because you're wicked. And Your lifestyle is what brought this down to you.
The AIDS epidemic was much more intense because I learned I was HIV positive before there was even any possible treatment. This was over 30 years ago. So the pandemic, of course, affected the whole population, but for me, HIV was much more intense. I mean, I was a little bit I was wondering how long I'd live.
I know that after the Black Death Society, everything changed, and I wondered what the changes were going to be.
One of the things I saw in those days as we were allowed to get out and go around LA, I saw the resilience of people. I saw how life continued. Different, but it continued.
It has morphed a lot of the relationships, but at the same time, it's also strengthened relationships.
The first few times I went out, and even now, I think I've noticed that people are friendlier. I think everyone was feeling the isolation, and I think everyone wanted to be out, and they wanted to talk, and they wanted to be with people.
One of the things I realized, the resilient thing was what I realized was I was having trouble at one point getting pictures of an empty freeway because there started to be cars in that freeway, a few, but enough to mess up the photo. And over time, I realized I can't take that picture anymore. There are too many cars. We have bounced back. We're coming back. We can do this. We can deal with this. Photography has helped me throughout my life in many regards, and this one, it did it again for me.
I feel the sunlight now get me again because we're almost through all this. We're almost through all this crap. And so I feel the strength in myself because I feel the strength in my community.
When I think about how this relates to the pandemic, I think of the sounds of freedom. Sometimes when I'm feeling a little down, I'll go into the living room and I'll ring it. And that makes me feel a little better and hopeful.
If we can live with this and survived, you can't deny that we are a pretty sturdy bunch of people.